Dominance is sexy. Control, command, surrender. It's why power exchange dynamics light up so many nervous systems. There's something primal and electric about giving or taking power in intimate contexts. But here's the thing. There's a world of difference between power exchange and power over. One is an erotic collaboration. The other is coercion dressed up as kink. And that distinction, it's not always obvious, especially if you're someone whose nervous system was conditioned by trauma to associate control with love. Or if you're new to kink and don't yet know what healthy power dynamics actually look like. Because abusers love to hide behind the language of dominance. They say things like, "I'm just being a good dom," or "This is what DS looks like," or "If you were a real submissive, you'd fill in the blank here." No, fuck that. Hey there, I'm Dr. Misty with Untamed Ember, and today we're breaking down the difference between power exchange and power over, how to spot red flags, and how to practice ethical dominance that turns both partners on, without tipping into manipulation or abuse. If you're exploring power dynamics and want to do it ethically, if you've experienced dynamics that felt off but couldn't name why, or if you're trying to figure out whether what you're experiencing is hot kink or actual harm, this episode is for you. Because power is intoxicating. And when something feels that good, it's easy to miss when it's crossed the line from consensual to coercive. It's easy to excuse red flags as just part of the dynamic. It's easy to gaslight yourself into thinking you're overreacting when your gut is screaming that something's wrong. So let's get clear about what ethical power exchange actually looks like. Let's talk about the red flags that signal you've left collaboration and entered coercion. And let's explore how dominance can be practiced in ways that are not only safer, but actually hotter, because trust makes everything sexier. So let's get into it. Let's start with the clear definition, because power exchange gets thrown around in kink communities, but not everyone explains what it actually means, or what makes it different from just regular power imbalances. Power exchange is a mutual dynamic where partners negotiate who holds authority in specific contexts for sharing pleasure and connection. The key elements are that it's negotiated. Both people explicitly discuss and agree on who has power, in what context, and to what extent. Nothing is assumed. Everything is talked through. It's very specific. Power isn't global, it's contextual. Maybe one person has authority during scenes, but not in daily life. Maybe power shifts depending on the activity. The boundaries of where power applies are clearly defined. And it's chosen. Both people want this dynamic. The person surrendering power is doing so because it turns them on, serves their desires, or meets their needs, not because they've been pressured or manipulated. And it's revocable. The power that's been given can be taken back. There are safe words, check-ins, and mechanisms for stopping or adjusting the dynamic if it stops feeling good. Examples of power exchange include DS, which is dominant and submissive relationships, where one partner takes a leadership role and the other follows, with clearly negotiated boundaries around what that looks like. Sometimes it's scenes where one partner takes control, directing the action, making decisions, orchestrating sensation, while the other receives and responds. And sometimes it's 24/7 dynamics where power exchange extends into daily life, but still within negotiated parameters that both people consent to. The crucial thing that makes all of these exchange rather than just power over is that they're collaborative. Both people are actively choosing this dynamic because it serves both of their desires. Think of it less like a dictator, more like a dance partner. One is leading, one is following, but both creating the rhythm together. The person following isn't being dragged around the dance floor against their will. They're choosing to follow because they trust the lead and enjoy the dance. From a nervous system perspective, genuine power exchange requires ventral vagal safety. Your body can only surrender to power when it fundamentally trusts the container. When you give someone control over your body, your pleasure, your vulnerability, your nervous system is making an assessment. Is this person safe? Can I let go here? Will they respect my boundaries? Will they stop if I need them to? If the answer to those questions is yes, your nervous system can access that delicious state of surrender. That's when power exchange becomes erotic and connecting rather than terrifying. But if the answer is no, if your nervous system doesn't trust the person you're giving power to, then what might look like power exchange on the surface is actually your body going into freeze, fawn, or collapse. You're not surrendering from a place of safety, you're dissociating from a place of threat. That's the difference between power exchange and trauma response. One feels good because you're choosing it from a place of safety. The other feels hollow because you're complying from a place of fear. Now let's talk about the dark side. Power over is when control isn't negotiated, it's imposed. When someone takes power without your genuine consent or maintains power by making it unsafe for you to say no or revoke consent. This is coercion, pressure, or manipulation disguised as dominance. And it happens far more often than the kink community likes to admit. Here are the signs that you've crossed from power exchange into power over. Somebody might say something like, if you really loved me, you'd fill in the blank here. This is emotional manipulation dressed up as dominance. Real dominance doesn't require guilt tripping or questioning your feelings to get compliance. If someone is using your love, your commitment, or your identity as a submissive to pressure you into things you're not comfortable with, that's coercion, not kink. Ignoring safe words or signals. This is the brightest, reddest flag that exists in kink. If you use your safe word and your partner doesn't stop immediately, that's not edgy dominance, that's assault. If your partner gets angry when you safe word, pouts, or makes you feel guilty, or tries to convince you that you didn't really need to stop, that's abuse. Safe words exist precisely to make power exchange safe. If they're not respected, the entire foundation of consent collapses. Mocking or minimizing your boundaries. Saying something like, you're so sensitive, or other subs don't need that much aftercare, or real submissives don't have so many limits, or you're not actually in subspace, you're just being dramatic. If your partner makes you feel shame for having boundaries, for needing care, for expressing discomfort, they're not practicing ethical dominance. They're breaking down your sense of what's acceptable so that they can take more than what you're willing to give. Isolation from support systems. Abusers who use kink as cover often try to isolate their partners. They might say something like, other people won't understand our dynamic, or you can't talk to your friends about this, it's private, or if you really trusted me, you wouldn't need outside validation. Ethical power exchange doesn't require isolation. It can exist alongside healthy friendships, community connections, and outside support. Inconsistent or unpredictable behavior. Power exchange requires consistency to feel safe. If your dominant partner is loving and attentive one day and cold and punishing the next, without clear communication about why, that's not dominance. That's emotional manipulation through intermittent reinforcement. Pressure to escalate beyond your comfort. They might say something like, we've been doing this for months, isn't it time to try X? Or, I thought you trusted me. Or, you said you were into this, why are you backing out now? Ethical dominants don't pressure. They invite, they check in, they respect when you're not ready or don't want something, period. Here's the trauma tie-in that's crucial to understand. Many survivors mistake coercion for intimacy because their nervous system was conditioned that way. If your early experiences taught you that love comes with control, that intimacy requires giving up boundaries, that saying no leads to abandonment or punishment, then power over can feel familiar, comfortable even. Your nervous system recognizes the pattern. It might feel like, this is what closeness looks like. This is how people who care about me treat me. But familiar doesn't mean healthy. And comfort with coercion is a trauma response, not evidence that the dynamic is working. Big reminder that needs to be said loudly. If you can't say no safely, your yes isn't real consent. If you're afraid of what will happen if you use your safe word, if you're worried about anger, abandonment, punishment, guilt tripping, then you're not in power exchange. You're in a power imbalance that you didn't choose. Consent requires the genuine option to say no without consequences. If that option doesn't exist, nothing that follows is actually consensual. no matter how much it looks like kink on the surface. So we've established what power exchange is and what red flags signal power over. Now let's talk about how to actually practice dominance ethically, in ways that create safety, deepen trust, and make the dynamic sustainable. Transparency. Negotiate boundaries, limits, and desires openly. Ethical dominance starts with radical honesty. You sit down outside of any sexual or play context and you talk through everything. What does this dynamic look like for both of you? What are you each hoping to get out of it? What are hard limits, things that are completely off the table, or no negotiation? What are soft limits, things you're not sure about but might be willing to explore with the right approach? What are your safe words or signals, and what do they mean? What does aftercare look like for each of you? What happens if someone's feelings change about the dynamic? None of this is sexy, it's logistical, but it's absolutely essential. You can't build ethical power exchange on assumptions. And here's what's important. These negotiations aren't time conversations, they're ongoing. You check in regularly. You adjust as you learn more about each other and yourselves. You treat negotiation as a living process, not a contract you sign once and then forget about. Check-ins, not just pre-scene, but during and after. Ethical dominants don't just negotiate before playing. They check in continuously. During scenes, you're reading body language. You're watching for signals of distress, dissociation, or nervous system dysregulation. You're asking questions, like, how are you doing? Do you want more? Do you want me to slow down? You're not just waiting for a safe word. You're actively monitoring to make sure your partner is still present, still engaged, and still consenting. And after scenes, you're debriefing. How was that for you? Was there anything that felt off? And what worked? What should we do differently next time? You're treating your partner as a collaborator whose feedback is valuable, not as a subordinate who should just accept whatever you decide. Consistency. Building trust through follow-through. Ethical dominance requires consistency. Your partner needs to know what to expect from you, not every detail of every scene, but the underlying reliability of your care and respect. If you say you'll check in the next day, you check in the next day. If you promise aftercare, you provide it. If you establish a boundary, you honor it. You don't surprise your partner by pushing boundaries they've set. You don't test their limits without permission. You don't play mind games to keep them off balance. Trust is built through predictability. Your partner needs to know that when you say you'll stop, you will. That when they need something, you'll listen. That your dominance is a stable container, not a chaotic roller coaster. Capacity checks. Consent depends on state. This is huge and often missed. Ethical dominants know that consent isn't just about what someone says. It's about what state they're in when they say it. If your submissive partner is dysregulated, in crisis, highly intoxicated, or in a traumatized state, they don't have capacity to consent even if they're saying yes. In those moments, ethical dominance shifts to caretaking. You don't take advantage of their vulnerability. You provide support and stability until they're regulated enough to make clear decisions. And you never, ever use someone's altered state, whether it's subspace, intoxication, emotional vulnerability, to push them into things that they wouldn't agree to when fully resourced. Real dominance isn't about taking what you can get. It's about wielding power responsibly, which sometimes means not wielding it at all. Humility. Your power is a gift. Perhaps most importantly, ethical dominance requires humility. You understand that your power exists only because it's been given to you. It's not inherent. It's not something you're entitled to. It's a gift that your partner chooses to offer. And they can revoke that gift at any time. This fundamentally shifts how you hold power. You're not a ruler demanding obedience. You're a steward of something precious that's been entrusted to you. And you treat your partner's surrender with reverence, not entitlement. You recognize that they're making themselves vulnerable to you, and you honor that vulnerability with care. When you approach dominance from this place, from gratitude rather than ego, it transforms the entire dynamic. because you're no longer performing dominance to prove something about yourself. You're holding power in service of connection, pleasure, and mutual exploration. And paradoxically, that's when dominance becomes most powerful. Let's talk about why ethical power exchange isn't just safer, it's actually hotter. From a nervous system perspective, dominance without coercion lets the body surrender fully because it trusts the container. When you know, not just intellectually, but in your body, that your dominant partner will respect your limits, honor your safe word, and prioritize your well-being over their ego, something magical happens. You can let go completely. You don't have to keep part of yourself on guard. You don't have to monitor constantly to make sure you're safe. You can surrender into the experience because your nervous system trusts that it's being held. That full body surrender, that's where the deepest pleasure lives. That's where transcendent experiences happen. And you simply cannot access that state if part of you is scared that your boundaries won't be respected. For neurodivergent and trauma-impacted folks especially, explicit structure plus predictable roles equals safer arousal. If your nervous system is wired to expect danger, to scan constantly for threat, to struggle with ambiguity, the clarity of negotiated power exchange can be deeply regulating. You know exactly what's expected. You know what the rules are. You know what will happen if you need to stop. That structure creates safety, and safety allows arousal to build without constantly triggering your defense systems. Trust deepens desire. Here's something I want every dominant to hear. The hottest dom is the one you know will stop the moment you need them to. It's not the dom who pushes hardest. It's not the dom who's most demanding or most strict or most willing to ignore your discomfort. It's the dom you trust so completely that you can surrender without reservation. The one who's proven again and again that your safety matters more to them than their pleasure. That trust is the foundation of genuine submission. Without it, what looks like submission is actually just compliance born from fear. And compliance is hollow compared to genuine surrender. For dominance, consent is artistry. I want to challenge dominants to see consent not as a buzzkill or a barrier, but as a part of the artistry of dominance. Your dominance is more powerful when it's freely chosen. When your partner is giving you power because they want to, not because they're afraid not to, that's the real power. That's power that has weight and meaning. Anyone can take power through coercion. That's not impressive. That's not skillful. That's just abusive. But creating a container safe enough that someone chooses to give you power, learning their nervous system so well that you can bring them to the edge without crossing it, building trust so deep that they can surrender completely, that's mastery, that's artistry. That's the kind of dominance worth aspiring to. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you practice dominance ethically, when you make consent central rather than an obstacle, your dynamic gets stronger, deeper, more sustainable, and yes, sexier, because you're building something real, something that can weather intensity without collapsing into harm, something that both people actively want to return to again and again. That's the kind of power exchange worth having. Let's pause and get visceral for a moment. Think about a time when someone held power over you, maybe in sex, maybe in a relationship, maybe in a work context or a family dynamic. A time when you felt like you couldn't say no, when your boundaries didn't matter, when someone else's will was imposed on yours. How did your body feel in that moment? Where did the sensation live? Was there tightness in your chest, tension in your jaw, a knot in your stomach? Did your breath get shallow? Did you feel yourself leaving your body? Sit with that for just a moment. Notice what power over feels like somatically. Now, think of a time when you gave someone power by choice, in a way that felt safe. Maybe it was letting a trusted friend make plans for an evening. Maybe it was surrendering to a massage therapist. Maybe it was a sexual or kink experience where you genuinely wanted to let someone lead. Notice the difference. Where did your breath go when power was chosen? Did it deepen? Did your breath soften? Did you feel yourself able to be more present rather than less? Where did you feel tense when power was taken? Where did you feel open when power was given? That visceral difference, that's your body telling you the truth about what's coercion and what's collaboration. Your nervous system knows. It always knows. And learning to trust that somatic wisdom is one of the most important skills you can develop when navigating power dynamics. As we close this episode, I want you to hear this. Power exchange is sexy because it's chosen. Power over is toxic because it's stolen. And when we understand the difference, when we can recognize the red flags, when we can practice dominance ethically, when we can build dynamics on consent rather than coercion, we create something that's not only safer, but deeper, hotter, and more sustainable. Your submission is precious. Your surrender is a gift. And anyone who treats it as anything less than that, anyone who demands rather than earns, who coerces rather than invites, who ignores your boundaries rather than honoring them, doesn't deserve the power you'd give them. And if you're a dominant, your power is only as meaningful as the consent that underlies it. Your dominance is only as impressive as the trust you've built to support it. Practice with humility, with transparency, with genuine care for the people who choose to surrender to you. Because the world doesn't need more dominants who take. It needs dominants who hold power with reverence, who understand that their role is to create safety for surrender, not to exploit vulnerability. If this episode gave you language for thinking about dominance in a new way, if it helped you recognize patterns you needed to see, subscribe to Untamed Ember wherever you get your podcasts. We're building this conversation together. And join the newsletter at untamedember.kit.com for deep dives into the complex, embodied work of navigating power, sexuality, and relationships with ethics intact. Until next time, this is Dr. Misty with Untamed Ember, reminding you that your body deserves power that liberates, not power that coerces. And you always, always have the right to say no, no matter what role you're playing. See you next episode.